residents, and I'm so pumped to be here, having this opportunity to speak with y'all tonight. I want to just tell y'all a little bit about myself. I grew up here in Fort Worth. I went to Southwest Christian School for middle. That is right. That's what I'm talking about. Some Swag West Christian up in here. I loved it. I loved my time there. I remember middle school very vividly, even though it feels like it was a long time ago. But there are some things that I still remember like clear as day about my time in middle school. I got my first phone in 6th grade. It was the Motorola Razr. Anybody know what that is? Yeah. Do they make phones? Like, do y'all know? Yeah, they are? Wow, that is wild. That is crazy. Yeah. Well, and then in 7th grade, I got my first iPhone, which, let me tell you, that was a huge, huge deal. I mean, I had YouTube, I had apps, I could play games, I could text all the girls that never would respond to me. But yeah, it was great. Other than that, it was fantastic. But yeah, and I also was introduced to social media during middle school. I had MySpace, Facebook, Twitter. 2 of those I still actually use, so don't judge me. But yeah, middle school is a crazy, crazy time. I mean, life is changing. School's getting harder. There's way more things for you to be a part of, whether it's sports, clubs, or just extracurricular activities. And so that's why I'm so excited to get to finish up this series on habits with you, because I think that is so important for us, and especially for you, is to know how to create good habits and how to break bad habits. And so I just kind of want to recap what we have kind of gone through on this series. We started off in week 1 talking about who before do. Nate kind of mentioned that who we are and who we want to be will determine the actions that we take in life. That we will live lives, that we'll make certain decisions, that we'll take actions to set goals based on the person that we want to be and the person that we are as followers of Jesus. And last week, Megan talked about what is one habit that we want to build in light of who we are and who we want to be. And so tonight, as we finish up, we're going to be talking about what is one habit that we need to break. What is one thing that we need to get rid of in order to live in light of who we want to be and who we are as followers of Jesus. You see, no one wants to fail. No one wants to mess up in life. No one wakes up in the morning and says, man, how can I screw up today? How can I just make a habit that is going to be destructive, and then 5 years later I'm just going to be thinking like, what in the world have I done? You see, we don't think that we don't want to make those goals, but I think a lot of times the way that we live and the habits that we have in our lives, they say otherwise. You know, some of the things that we do, some of the things that we are constantly letting take root in our lives, we're letting that, and it's wrecking our lives. You see, my Christmas break, my junior year of college, me and one of my best friends were going to go skiing. It was my first time going skiing. I'd never been before. I've always wanted to go skiing. It was a dream of mine, and I was finally like, hey, Matthew, we're going to go skiing. So we were like, all right, let's do it. So we head over to Colorado, stay with one of our friends. The night before, we're looking at YouTube videos. We're asking our friend for tips and how do we ski well. He told us how to pizza. I don't know if y'all are any like professional skiers. It's like where you take your skis, wedge them in like a pizza slice, and that's kind of how you stop. Yeah, they teach that to toddlers, but here I am, 22 years old, trying to learn how to pizza. So I'm feeling pretty confident. You know, the YouTube videos, it looked so easy, okay? I thought, you know, by the end of the day, I'll probably be skiing on the Black Diamonds. Like, I'm going to get this down. It's not bad. So we show up to the slopes the next morning. We show up, and I'm just as excited as ever. I'm like even more pumped at this point. And you know what? I'm like, you know what? I got this. I'm pretty athletic. I've seen my YouTube videos on how to ski. Who needs ski school? Yeah, that was a bad mistake, okay? And so we head over straight to the bunny slope, which slope is a very generous term for what this was. It was really just like a slight decline, like just a hill, maybe not even a hill. And so we head over there, and I'm looking at all these 6-year-olds just sending it, just absolutely going for it. And I'm like, yeah, all right, I can do that. So I just take off, and I just keep going down. And as I go down, I'm like, oh my goodness, I am picking up more speed. What is happening? I try turning, I can't turn. I try pizzaing, but it's just my knees are going in, my skis aren't doing anything, and I begin to freak out. And I see all these 6-year-olds skiing around me way better than I am, and I'm like, what is happening? And I look up, and all I see in front of me is this trail closed sign, and I'm heading straight toward it. So I'm like, I got to get on the ground now. So I try sitting down. Guess what? That's impossible to stop by sitting down. You just pick up more speed that way. And so I'm freaking out. Everything's flying out my head at this point, and the only thing I think to do is launch myself into the air and dive into the snow. Like that was a good idea, but it looked way better than crashing into the trail's closed sign. So I launch into the air, and I crash into the ground, and I hear this crack right when I hit the snow. I get up, and my shoulder's aching, and I broke my shoulder on the bunny hill my first time skiing. It was embarrassing. Needless to say, I did not get on the Black Diamonds that day. But for most of us, that is how we treat our habits. We think, oh, this is harmless. I can look at these inappropriate pictures on my phone this one time. It won't hurt. Or I can play video games before I do my homework. It's fine. I don't have to get to my responsibilities till later. I can control how much I play. And I can say this one hurtful thing about someone because, man, that's what all these other cool people are doing, and I want to fit in with them. And you know what? Is it really going to be that bad if I say this? You see, we love to make excuses for our habits. We build this false confidence in ourselves, in our abilities. Just like I did on the bunny hill. I thought I was so much better of a skier than I was. And yet what we do is we build these habits and they begin to wreck our lives, and we look around and we see we're heading straight for the closed trail sign. And we think, how did we get here? And we each have a bad habit. We each have something that's keeping us from living into that who that we want to be and that who we are that Nate talked about in the first week of this series. Now hear me, what I'm not saying is social media and Netflix and YouTube and video games are bad things. They're not bad things, but let me propose something to you, is that we all have, and I am included in this, have let those things like Netflix, social media, video games, and YouTube become habits and become things in our lives that are wrecking us and that aren't making us live into the light of who we are and who we want to be. See, when we define our worth based on how many likes we get on Instagram, if we play video games and neglect our responsibilities and disobey our parents, if we look at inappropriate pictures online or on apps, we've created bad habits. And that's a problem. And we're not living as followers of Jesus. We're not living to our full potential that we have been made as followers of Christ. And so the Apostle Paul, he talks a lot about this, what it looks like to follow Jesus free from sin and free from these bad habits. So if you want to, if you have a Bible or a phone or something, turn to Ephesians 4:17. That's where we'll be in tonight. And as you get there, I want to just kind of set up where we're at and right before where we get to our passage and what Paul's talking about here in Ephesians. And so what he's talking about and what he's laying out is that we as followers of Christ have been saved through grace, by grace, through faith in Jesus Christ's death and resurrection on the cross. And because of that, because of what he did on the cross for us, we have been brought from death to life. We are made new. And because of that, we have a new hope and a new freedom. And yet we live in a world, though, that is fallen and sinful and broken, and it's tough. And so Paul gives us a warning here, picking up in verse 17. And he says, "So I tell you this, and insist on it in the Lord, that you must no longer live as the Gentiles do, in the futility of their thinking. They are darkened in their understanding and separated from the life of God, because of the ignorance that is in them, due to the hardening of their hearts." See, Paul says that now that we have been saved and we have this new life, don't go back to where we were. Don't go back to the ways that we were living. Because he uses this word futility, and what that means is that we're chasing after things that have no real satisfaction, no real substance in our lives, that they'll always leave us empty. And that's what the Gentiles are doing. They're not considering their actions. They're not considering the habits and the choices that they're making, and that they're living into some life that what he says is their hearts and have become darkened, and their understanding and separating from this life of God, that he has so much more planned for us, that has such a better life in store for us, and yet we are chasing after things that don't matter. You see, why do we need to break our bad habits? Because we're not living into the full potential that God created us to be, when we're allowing our bad habits to control and mess up our lives. See, my senior year of college, the game Fortnite came out, It was a pretty big deal. It's a pretty good deal. By the response, I guess it's not a big deal anymore. It's dead. Yes. It's over. Yes. But when I was in college, and when it first came out, it was a huge deal, as most of y'all know. And for me, it began as just me and my friends, me and my roommates, we'd start playing Fortnite occasionally. But as the semester went on, I began playing more and more and more and began taking up more and more of my free time to the point where to the minute I got home from class, I would start playing until the late hours of the night. And so what happened is it caused me to neglect my certain academic responsibilities. I began to neglect what I needed to accomplish in my classes up to the point that I was in danger of failing one of my classes for my second semester of senior year. I'd made it almost 4 years of college, this close to graduating, and I had let a game that is not even cool anymore, not even cool, and it is almost wrecking my life. And not only did it almost wreck me academically, but spiritually as well. I mean, I was spending my whole free time playing Fortnite. I wasn't spending time in God's Word. I wasn't spending time in community with other believers. I was even at points neglecting going to some community groups. All for what? Something that at the end of the day, I knew I had wasted my time. That whenever I'd go to bed eventually and turn off my Xbox, that I knew, what was I doing? And so many of us, we have that feeling of like, I know it's not fulfilling. I know it's not satisfying, but yet we keep returning to it. We keep thinking that stuff that has no weight, that we know we're not satisfied from it, we think it's going to give us a different result each time, and yet every single time it fails us. So how often do we let our bad habits derail us from who we are and who we want to be? How often do we sacrifice what we know is right just to fit in with a certain crowd? And how often are we getting on social media comparing who we are to the highlight reels of everyone else's life? That's the funny thing about social media is that, like, whenever you get on, you're not seeing the other people's crap in their lives. You're not seeing the bad stuff. You're seeing what they want you to see. You're seeing the best things. And so when we get on social media, we're looking at that and we're comparing it to the crap and to the hard times that are happening in our lives, and it is taking away from the life that we've been given. When we define our worth based on what others think of us, it doesn't satisfy us. Yet we keep doing that. It doesn't live up to the hype. Many of us, we look for a device or an app or a group of people to tell us what we're worth, when God says that you're beloved. In 1 John 3:1, you don't have to turn there, but he says, see what great love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God, and that is what we are. See, we're too busy chasing empty things and creating bad habits when the creator of the universe, who saved us, who sent his son to die for us, has called us his children. And so how do we break these habits? You see, we see the need, but Luke, how do I break it? How do I practically, I know that it's causing me to live short of my potential, but how do I do it? Sometimes we're so aware, but we just don't know. So I remember in high school, I was in 9th grade, and I used to go to church camp, and I began to know, okay, well, Luke, I have this struggle. I have these bad habits I need to get rid of, and so I'd go to church camp. I'd get convicted. I'd come back home, and I would try so hard. I would try my hardest to not give in, to waste my time, to not give in to conforming to that group of people, to not looking at inappropriate images on apps. And yet 2 weeks go by, and bam, I would give in. And I couldn't understand why. I felt stuck. I felt like, what am I not? I'm trying so hard. And what Paul tells us, he tells us plainly what to do in Ephesians 4:22. He says, you were taught with regard to your former way of life, to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. The issue is, a lot of times, we let God and we trust him for our salvation and to keep us out of hell, but we don't trust God as our Savior, as our Lord every single day over our lives. See, when it comes to our sin and bad habits that we have in our lives, we try so hard to quit it on our own, to say, all right, God, I promise you this time, it's the last time. Like I'm done. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to make sure I don't fall again. And just like me, I was relying on my own power, my own strength, and yet it never will be okay. It never will be enough. We have to continually, what Paul says here, continually submit to God's power and to put off our old self and to put on our new self. We have to remove those bad habits. We have to take off the old, and not just take off and be done with it, but then bring in the new habits. Bring in what is uplifting, what creates an attitude for us to live into the identity and to the person that God has called us to be. Like Megan was talking about, building up and creating new habits. So how do we practically do this? I'm going to give you 3 ways. You have to first acknowledge it. You can't overcome what you don't recognize as a problem. We have to define it. We have to define the habit that's in our lives that's keeping us from living into our full potential. You see, if you break your arm, you're not going to go to the doctor and say, all right, doc, I got a problem. I have a cold. No, that's silly. That's stupid. You wouldn't do that because guess what? It's not going to work. It's not going to fix the clear problem of you having a broken arm. You're not going to do that. And honestly, if your doctor, if you walk in with a broken arm, and he doesn't know it's a broken arm, then you need to find a new doctor. That's not good. But seriously, that's what we do a lot of times. We like to think, okay, I know I have this problem, but I don't really want to I don't want to know about it. I don't want to address it. But guys, we have to clearly address it in order for us to even begin to break free from those habits and those sins. Make it clear. Be honest with yourself. And for those of you that don't know or you can't think of, okay, well, I don't even know if I have a bad habit. Like, I want to encourage you, talk to your parents, talk to your small group leader, talk to a trusted friend, because I guarantee you they will, in a loving way, say, hey, this is what I see. This is what I see as a bad habit for you. That's so crucial. Don't think that, hey, I don't know if I have any. Go to someone, ask. And for those of you that, are thinking like, oh my gosh, like I got so many habits. Like Luke, you've literally mentioned like all of them. Like social media, crap, I'm like all on that all the time. Like video games, like you, I played till midnight every night. So how do what do I do? Well, you need to focus. You gotta sit down and focus on one. You can't expect to tackle them all at one time. That's not feasible. That's not practical, because what will end up happening is that you're going to fall, you're going to mess up, and you say, I can't do this. You got to start with the small beginnings. Start one at a time. You have to identify, acknowledge what it is. Okay, hey, what in my life is really taking me away from the person that I want to be, the person who God has called me to be as a follower of Jesus, and what is distracting me from that? What is wrecking my potential from that? And say, okay, that is what it is. That is what I need to tackle. And then celebrate the small steps and work your way up to tackling the rest of them. Secondly, we need to confess it. Now, this is going to feel awkward and scary, but I'm telling you guys, this is crucial. And something that I desperately wish that I had done and began building this habit of when I was your age. See, it wasn't until college that I realized that I needed to confess to a trusted friend, a mentor, someone that I knew that loved me, that cared for me, that wanted me to be the man that God created me to be, to live into that full potential. So I'm telling you guys, don't wait. Don't wait like I did till college. Don't even wait till high school. Start tonight. Your small group leaders, your friends, they won't run away from you. They won't mock you because of what you're struggling with. For so long, I believed this lie that oh my gosh, I'm the only one struggling with this, that I'm the only one that struggles with conforming to fit in, with my time management, with looking at inappropriate things and degrading women on my phone, that there's no way that anybody else that is in my class is going through this. I believed those lies. I thought I was going to be an outcast. I was going to be shunned by my failures and by the sin in my life. And so I bottled it up. And as I bottled it up, it grew and grew and grew and began to take root in my life. So don't believe those lies. I promise you they won't reject you. But they'll love you and be there for you. And they'll even show you things in your life that you weren't even aware of, that you weren't even knowing that was causing you harm. I'm incredibly thankful for the people that I have in my life, that I know that I can open up to, that I can seek wisdom from, that I can confess to, that I know that they're not going to abandon me based off of my sins and my failures, but that they love me, that they care for me, that they challenge me to be a better man, that they challenge me to be a better husband. And this is something that, like, it's tough and it's awkward, and it's something that you're going to want to be tempted to, okay, I did it one time. Woo, I confessed. I'm good. No, it is a constant thing, and it's tough. It's hard. Like, I'm telling you, I'm 23, and it is still tough. But it is so crucial. It is so necessary. Because until then, you're not going to be able to break past those habits. You're going to let them grow. You're going to let them grow in secret. They're going to begin to take more and deeper roots in your life. And so we have to practice continually. Like Paul said, we have to take off the old, flee from our old way of lives, and put on the new, who we are in Jesus. So our last point is we need to create barriers. We have to make it difficult to give in to our bad habits and sins. You see, we want to quit. We see the need to quit. We see that the damage and the wreck that it's causing in our lives, but we're not willing to do whatever it takes. And until you get to that point of being willing to do whatever it takes, you're not going to break your habits. See, if you have a problem looking at inappropriate images on your phone at night, then don't sleep with your phone. I know that sounds simple, but and for those of you that say, like, it's my alarm clock, I need it. Like, okay, most of you're probably still being woken up by your parents. And secondly, if you're not, great for you, but there's like $10 alarm clocks at Target. So that's not an excuse. And if you're struggling with certain apps, constantly comparing yourself, looking at inappropriate images, then get app restrictions. Guys, it is not worth it. It is not worth it. That if you're constantly comparing yourself and measuring your worth off of what other people think of you and comparing it to the highlights of everyone else, it's keeping you from so much more life and so much more potential that God has created for you. So get app restrictions. And see, I'm telling you this not because your parents, not because Nate, not because Jack told me, hey, Luke, we really need you to talk about phones. Like, we really need to talk about apps and spending time wisely. Like, this is coming from my personal experience. As someone that grew up in the first generation of middle schoolers with smartphones, like that was me. Like in 7th grade, I got my first iPhone. And yet, I thought I was creating harmless habits in my life, things that weren't going to wreck me. And then I look up 5-10 years later down the road, and I see the damage that has happened. I see the hurt that it's caused in relationships. I see the potential, the opportunities that have been wasted. Don't allow yourself to create those bad habits. Don't allow that to happen. See, I no longer allow myself to even download apps on my phone without my wife, my awesome, wonderful wife, to put a passcode in on my phone, because I value that so much, because I am done wasting the calling that God has put on my life and the potential that He's placed in me over an app, over something that, like Fortnite, like all these video games, like all these apps, there's always going to be a new one. There's always going to be a next one. There's always going to be something better. There's always going to be something bigger, and it doesn't last. And so maybe it's not a phone. Maybe it's not a device. Maybe it's the people you hang out with. You know, if your friends are causing you to live and behave in a way that you know is not right, if what you're doing on your phones isn't good, that if how you talk about others, how you talk about other friends is not right, is not uplifting, then it's time for some new friends. You see, 1 Corinthians 15:33, it says, "Do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character." Paul is very clear. Like, you may be a great kid, but if you're hanging out with a bunch of idiots, you're going to become an idiot, okay? Because we are who we become, or the people we hang out with are who we become. We must get to that point where we're willing to do whatever it takes. We're willing to put up barriers. We're willing to confess it. We're willing to just do whatever it takes to get it out of our lives, to make it uncomfortable for us to fall into sin and temptation, because we know that we were created for more. And so it's something that we have to do continually. It's something that it's not an overnight success. It's not something like, all right, I'm going to create a bad habit today, and boom, my life is good, no more bad habits. It's something that you have to practice every single day, continually submitting to God, continually surrendering to the power of Jesus. You know, a lot of us, we don't realize as followers of Christ that we have the same power that raised Jesus from the dead that's living in us. Did y'all know that? Like the Holy Spirit that raised Christ from the dead is living in us. We have that same power as believers, and yet so often we don't live into that. We don't submit to his power. We don't say, all right, I can't do this on my own. I'm going to just try it, fix it, then I'll get back to you, God. No. God doesn't want that. God wants us to surrender and submit to him every single day. And it's hard, but guess what? That's why it's important to have community. That's why it's important to have strong small groups, to have strong friends that love you, that care for you, that want you to be the best version of yourself possible, to live a life that Jesus, that God instructs us to live. You know, and you might be thinking like, oh my gosh, like I don't even know if I can come back. Like I've done some messed up things. I have some bad habits. Like that is a lie. Like there is nothing that you can do to outrun the love and the grace of God. You know, there's nothing that you can do. He will welcome you with open arms. And so I challenge you tonight. Don't let another night go by. Don't let another day go by where you're stuck in your habits and you think there's no way out. Because guess what? There is. Open up to your small group leaders. Open up to a trusted friend. Rely on that power every single day. Wake up and say, God, I can't do this on my own. It's a continual thing. I'm going to put off the old. I'm going to put on the new. And I'm going to live into the life that you've created me to be. Because the who that I want to be, the who that I know that I'm called to be is so much greater than what Instagram says I am, than wasting my time away playing video games. There's so much more. Live into that every single day. Surrender to the one, Jesus, the giver of life, the giver of the only true life that will satisfy and sustain us. God, I thank you for your love. I thank you for your mercy in our lives, God, that no matter where we come from, no matter what we've done, that you love us, no matter what, and you offer us grace. But God, that we realize and we recognize that there are habits in our lives that are destructive, that are taking away from who we are and who you've called us to be. And so I pray, God, that we take just steps towards breaking those, towards living into the life that you've called us to live. God, that we don't want to waste the potential, to waste the gifts that you've given us. That we start tonight, that we don't put it off thinking that, hey, we got this on our own. We don't want to look up and see the closed trail sign heading straight for it because of our bad habits. God, we love you and we thank you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Awesome. Can you guys thank Luke?